So, pretty rich environment. Lots of teachings of reincarnation from different sources, and of course, oops, wrong piece of equipment. So, oh, and here's the spread. So, I mean, to show you that it's not just simply Persia we're talking about, right? I mean, there's India down there. Here's Persia, right? Well, it goes all the way to China. And by the way, the Chinese still have temples of Mani in China today that are active. So they're still practicing this today in China. I can show you some great slides from China. Goes down into Egypt. Goes all the way across through Anatolia and up into Rome, and spreads all the way up to Britain. So to say Manichaean teachings, you're not talking about an isolated teaching in the Sasanian Empire. You're talking about the spread of a huge spread of teachings throughout the world at this time on reincarnation. Very explicit. So I'm hoping I'm building up a picture in your mind in which you see that reincarnation is the dominant theory of the time of Jesus. It's the dominant theory of the time of Jesus. Very pervasive and very well known over the entire world. But still, we have to ask ourselves, so did Jesus teach reincarnation? I can't quite maneuver around that one. So, and of course it's a huge debate, you know, because mainstream Christianity denies reincarnation. But how did that happen? Because it looks like Jesus did discuss reincarnation. He didn't teach it, but it seems clear that there's incidents in which he brings it up. And that Yeshua ben Miriam was, in fact, well aware of the theory of reincarnation, but didn't teach it. Why didn't he teach it? Well, he didn't teach it, it seems, and this is the best explanation I've heard. He didn't teach it because Jesus' emphasis was on the forthcoming transformation and ascension of humanity. You know, the final judgment, his return in the lifetime of his disciples. So reincarnation is out the window. It's not really part of the theory he's teaching. So we don't get the teaching. But here's something. Jesus does not teach anything against reincarnation. Now consider how pervasive it is. It was taught by the Jewish Pharisees, reincarnation. So it was in the environment. It was and there's several questions that come up in the Gospels, and Jesus doesn't say, "Oh, that's a ridiculous idea." He puts a different spin on it without actually denying the theory itself. For example, Jesus himself claims that he pre-existed before Abraham. That's the pre-existence of soul. He pre-existed before Abraham. So there's the doctrine of pre-existence. And then he says that he will return again, right? Jesus comes back in a body. That's reincarnation. To come back again in a body is reincarnation. That's a fundamental theory there. He also says John was Elijah come again. Elijah come again. Well, Elijah was a prophet of old who comes again in the form of John the Baptist. That's reincarnation. He makes that claim. He also says, he asked them, his disciples, who do people say I am? And the disciples say, well, some say you're John the Baptist, come back to life again. Others say you're the prophet Elijah. Others say you're some old prophet from the past. That sounds like reincarnation to me, an old prophet from the past. And Jesus doesn't say, no, that's the wrong idea. He gives a different response, and this is the famous response by Peter when Peter says, but I say you're the living Son of God and now in the present. So, he doesn't really address the theory of incarnation, but they're working with it, and he's just saying, no, I represent something else other than reincarnation. And then there's the famous blind man story. Remember that Jesus healed the blind man who was born blind. And the disciples say, Jesus, they say, this is just a way of saying, not that Jesus taught reincarnation. I don't think that's actually true, but that it was in the environment. It was part of the context in which Jesus was working. And here's a nice quote from the Pharisees, because you know all the argument he has with the Pharisees and the Sadducees, right? And here in this idea we see the souls of good men only are removed into other bodies, but the souls of bad men are subject to lasting punishment. That was a common Pharisee belief, that the souls of the good return to human life and after death to come back, to be reborn. And the souls of the bad were sent to a Sheol, the place of suffering. And Philo says the same thing. Those who are nearest to earth return to other bodies, desiring to live with them. So in Jesus' environment, without any doubt, reincarnation was a fundamental idea and concern. So this brings us then to Origen, because Origen becomes the person who tries to assimilate this, and several hundred years after the death of Jesus, and to try to make sense of the theory. And the sources on Origen are extremely ambiguous. I'll just say that. They're ambiguous. You can't, some people say, well, Origen taught reincarnation. Well, that's really not true. Origen did affirm the pre-existence of the soul, for sure. He made that a clear statement that all souls are created by God in the beginning. And then he entertains thoughts about John as Elijah come again. He looks into things. Maybe he says there's a theory of reincarnation. He speculates. Is it not rational that souls be introduced into bodies according to merits and former deeds? That's a sort of karmic theory there, that souls be introduced into bodies according to merits and former deeds, and that those who receive the most superior bodies are those doing the most good. So that sounds like a theory of reincarnation, and yet in other places he says he has to reject the theory of transmigration because it's incompatible with the teachings of the church. So you can just see the conflict right there in terms of the church is going one life, one death, one judgment. And reincarnation does not fit into that theology. And Origen's caught right in between, trying to negotiate. Is it? Is it not? And he comes up with a unique theory. I don't think anyone else, I think he borrows this from the Gnostics. He says, well, when God created, he creates in ages. There are various ages that are created. And what happens is perhaps the soul reincarnates once in each age. So, of course, you want to know what's an age, right? How long is an aeon? He doesn't tell us that, right? But there's an idea of reincarnation through a series of ages that sort of assimilates the theory, and he articulates this theory of apokatastasis, which is, however, and this is a theory that again will reassert itself, that whatever the process is, whatever the process of soul is, whether it's a judgment in heaven and hell or reincarnation, no matter what, at the end of the ages, all of creation will be redeemed and all of it will be uplifted into a holistic, harmonious reality, and even the demons in hell will be redeemed. I'll bet you never heard that doctrine before. But you have? Okay, that's good. So this is the theory of apokatastasis, which is the whole creation will be redeemed and eventually restored. So there will be universal salvation for everyone, even whether it's heaven and hell or whether it's reincarnation.